Hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday Eve. That means Thursday for some of y'all. I know y'all be like, wait a minute, it's not Friday. I like the change. It causes a paradigm shift when we say Friday Eve. We know we're heading towards that good time of the week that so many of us enjoy. But I hope you're having a fantastic week so far. I have Angela Harris with me, very special guest. We're talking about inclusive leadership in tech. Angela and I realized we both have backgrounds in technology, and we just noticed some things. So we wanted to bring that to the forefront in this conversation today. But before we get into it, Angela, I want to make space first off to say thank you for coming on here and sharing your wisdom with us. And then, secondly, to just introduce yourself.
Well, thank you, Jevon, for having me as a guest. I am Angela V. Harris, and I'm the founder and CEO of 2638 Management Group. And we are a leadership development and coaching company dedicated to transforming leaders from the inside out. I also have the honor and privilege of serving as Miss Washington, D.C. in the 2025 Miss Corporate America competition. And Miss Corporate America recognizes the
Yeah.
achievements of women who are innovators and influencers in their respective fields of business. And my pageant platform is focused on championing the representation of women in the tech industry.
No, I love it. I was definitely going to ask you about the crown and the sash. I love it. Congratulations on that honor. Well deserved, if I might add.
Thank
So let's
you.
hop into this. Let's take what you just spoke on your platform for Miss Washington Corporate Woman of the Year 2025. And let's talk about it and apply it to the inclusive leadership in tech. What are
Mhm.
some of the, what, first of all, what does inclusive leadership even mean? Let's define that first.
It can mean a variety of things, like the way I view it as, first of all, increasing the representation of women, specifically Black women in the tech industry. I worked in tech for over 20 years and the numbers remain flat the entire time. I think women make up about 26, 27% of the representation of the tech workforce. Black women make up about 2.2% now. It
Mm,
was 3%, but with all the mass layoffs and everything that we've seen the past couple of years, it's down to 2.2%. And when we had DEI on the books, the numbers weren't changing. So
interesting.
it's having the representation of women, diverse women, and having an environment where they are welcome, celebrated, and appreciated. Because
Okay.
oftentimes we are working in toxic environments as well, and the toxicity is not changing.
So let me ask you this: what do you think is the catalyst for those numbers remaining flat over all that time?
Again, several things. The pay gap. We talk about pay equity year after year, and despite the awareness, it's going to take 100 years to reach for women to reach pay parity in the United States. Like there's acts like the Paycheck Fairness Act, which hopefully will make things a little bit easier in terms of requiring organizations to publicly display the salary. So we're dealing with the pay gap. We're dealing with the concept of the broken rung, which means that women oftentimes do not have the opportunity to transition into that first management level position. I personally fell victim to the broken rung. Despite having over 20 years of experience, a bachelor's degree, master's degree in information technology leadership, as well as a project management certification, I never officially held a leadership role in corporate America. And when we look at it from the lens of Black professionals face a double broken rung, meaning that they don't get the first opportunity for management, yet alone executive leadership.
Hmm. So I know the next question everyone is listening and watching is probably going to ask is, how do we solve it? Like we know that there's an issue here. It's been
Mhm.
an issue. You mentioned the 100 years it will take, but it's going
Mhm.
to take longer than that if we continue in this same vein, right? So
Yeah.
how do we solve this?
That is a loaded question, and I feel like so many companies have these initiatives that were allegedly supposed to solve it. I think back in 2014, I believe, I think all the tech companies started disclosing their diversity numbers and statistics and started making pledges, which we never saw them deliver on. So that was
Hmm.
supposed to be one solution to the problem. However, there was never any accountability. Every time that they said, like, okay, we're going to meet our numbers by 2020, 2020 will come. Okay, now it's 2025. So the numbers keep getting pushed. So there's no accountability. Again, going back to the pay gap is something that could help potentially access to mentorship and sponsorship, especially for women in the industry. And just recognizing why people are leaving. I think I read something recently that said 50 over 50% of women are leaving the tech industry by age 35. So why are women leaning out? Doing some analysis around that.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. And I also know that a lot of women decided to say, hey, if I'm not going to get what I deserve in the corporate space, I'm stepping out into entrepreneurship.
Right. We're creating our own tables.
Absolutely, absolutely, which is amazing. But I know a lot of listeners, they're like, yeah, we want to keep the top talent, right? And women,
Hmm.
equate for a lot of that top talent. And a lot of these organizations. I was just here at the SHRM Talent Conference, and I spoke on workforce planning, leveraging data and emotional intelligence. Now, the
Hmm.
data you mentioned tells us we have the issue. Right, it's mentioning that we're not hiring diversity, we're not inclusive in our leadership practices,
Yeah.
we're not retaining clearly
Right.
because if
Broken,
the numbers are
broken
going down.
pipeline.
Yeah, exactly. So from my standpoint, it sounds like biases are coming into play.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
It sounds
Yes.
like that familiarity. I want to hire who looks like me, who went to my school, who has some of the same experiences, and all that stuff is coming into play. So I spoke on this yesterday, and what I imagine is if we start training people on emotional intelligence, meaning that we acknowledge our biases, we acknowledge our blind spots, and then we start to create our workforce planning strategies around that to say, you know what, I have these, I need someone to check me on this, or
Hmm.
leveraging AI. Now a lot of
Hmm.
companies are bringing in AI to kind of help them with that piece of hiring on merit versus hiring on familiarity. So what are your thoughts on that?
I agree completely. Actually, I'd like to share this, I guess, a quick example regarding the bias. And I think I just posted about this recently on LinkedIn, how I was trying to get promoted within my organization, previous organization, and I was working as a program manager. My manager had no program management or project management experience, but yeah, she told me that I did not meet the competencies to get promoted, despite the fact that I had my PMP certification, a master's degree. I was on an IT advisory board for a university, speaking on industry related panels. So I was demonstrating to her how I was meeting competencies, but she felt that I did not meet the competencies. However, she hired a college classmate for the level position that I was trying to get promoted for.
Hmm. And let me ask you this: were you aware of what the competencies were before
Yes,
you
yes, and
Okay.
I was aware, and she actually had me do an exercise where she had me document the competencies and how I
Hmm.
felt that I was meeting those competencies. And again, I did all that, and some of the things that I was doing to meet the competencies were external in terms of my board service and industry panel representation. And they told me it didn't matter what I was doing outside of the company.
Pretty much, they already knew that they had someone, and they were just posting it just for
Well, not
the.
even that. That was even before that person came along. Just for me
Oh.
getting promoted. So they told me it didn't matter what I was doing outside of the company. And actually, she gave me a list of potential training classes to consider to be deemed worthy of promotion.
Interesting. And she wasn't even aware. She had no experience in what she was talking about.
Right, right. Because
Uh,
again, being a
that's a huge
PMP,
issue.
yeah, being a PMP, I'm required to do continuing education to maintain my certification. So the classes she was suggesting, I probably already taken or would be taking at some point to maintain my certification.
Yeah, and this is a great spot for me to ask. Like, I know you work with a lot of leaders on this, like making sure that they address just what we're talking about here.
Mhm.
So, what are some of the things you coach these leaders on to kind of alleviate the issues that we're referring to today?
It goes back to what you said earlier about, the self-awareness and the emotional intelligence. And sometimes we as coaches have to hold up the mirror to those leaders. Like they're holding their staff members to a different level, but sometimes they are exhibiting the same behavior that they don't want to see within
Hmm.
their team members. So is this bringing awareness to that type of behavior and kind of challenging them on it?
Yeah, and I'm sure, like, I gotta ask you now, like, what happens when you challenge them on it? What is the theme that you typically see? What's their response like?
They tell me that they don't like me. It's like, ooh, I don't like you right now, but I like you because like you're calling me out. So,
Yeah.
but I do it in a loving way.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, and we have an array of different folks, not just people with the title that embodies the leadership, but also
Mhm,
people who are in roles that they would like to manage up. Right.
mhm.
So, what would you say to someone's like, "Hey, my leader does that, right? They do the same exact thing your leader did to you. They do it to me." Do you have any advice for someone in that position?
on how to, I guess, alleviate that problem.
Yeah, how to alleviate it or how to navigate it. Maybe not even alleviate because maybe they don't have that, but maybe they can navigate the fact that the leadership is not inclusive.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it really goes back to focusing on what you can control, and the only thing you can really control is yourself and how you respond to that situation. So you just have to determine what's important to you. Like, is it important for you to stay and continue to endure that situation, or do you want to take your talents elsewhere?
Yeah, that's a real conversation to have within yourself, right?
Sometimes you could do all the things. Like I could have jumped through all the hoops and
Yep.
done all the training classes and the laundry list of things that she wanted me to do, but I still may have not been promoted. Honestly, I felt like I probably would not have still been promoted. So you have to make the best decision based on based on your interests.
Yeah, so true. And one of the things that I've heard a lot in this debate over, diversity, equity, inclusion, and all these things that are hot that we're seeing in the corporate space right now, is what you mentioned earlier. Like they felt that the programs that were being in place or put in place were not
Mhm.
effective. So to combat that, I'm curious, like, what do you think, like, from an inclusive leadership standpoint? What is the baseline? What's the foundation to build an effective, inclusive, diverse leadership forum on?
I would say this working. I know everyone has bias, so doing the best that you can to try to eliminate bias in the hiring process. I know some people talk about using like the blind resumes, not putting like names on resumes. So that could be one thing. Again, pay transparency, training your leaders. I believe I've read that some organizations tend to send out reminders around performance review time, and just about how they can eliminate that as they are evaluating their employees' performance. And I would just say this having like a standard rubric in terms of how you are evaluating candidates. Like you can't have two people coming in for the same job with the same experience and one person's running a higher level and the other person isn't. And I guess like if you are seeing pay discrepancies in the people that you're bringing into the organization, and you're addressing that and doing a pay audit to make sure that everyone is like on an even playing field.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, absolutely. And and I see a lot of companies. I mentioned the AI, but I'm seeing a lot of organizations that are starting to see the benefits. We know the benefits of inclusive spaces and diverse
Yeah.
spaces when it comes to innovation and productivity and all these. I mean, all the big fours have done extensive reports on these types of things. But
Yeah.
how do you communicate that? Like if I'm in HR, if I'm in talent, and I'm like, you know what, we don't have inclusivity here. Here's the numbers that I want to present to the leadership to let them know how this impacts our bottom line. What would those numbers be? What do you think they should be looking at?
Well, I guess people always say data doesn't lie. So many companies do, I think it's like the Pulse survey. So taking a look at the Pulse survey data and also the feedback from the employees. And if it's bad feedback, we're putting a plan in place to address some of those concerns. And obviously just being transparent. And I feel like a lot of times we'll have companies, do these surveys, but they're not really transparent
Yeah,
in terms of the results or what they are doing regarding the results. And oftentimes we only see, I guess, like the happy path scenario, especially as it relates to diversity reports. I feel like, again, most of these companies have been saying like, oh, we're on target, or we've already exceeded our goals, but the numbers haven't been changing. So what have you been doing all this time? And
yeah,
just really getting clear about your culture. It's going to take culture work and a culture shift. So what type of culture do you want to have in your organization?
absolutely. And
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 it
you
starts
know,
at the top. It
I was
starts at
just
the
about to
top.
say that, a lot of that diversity work that was done happens at the lower levels.
Mhm,
But then
mhm.
as you get closer to that top and that C suite and all that stuff, it thins out, right? Among
Yeah,
women, among diverse races, among sexual preference and orientation, it thins out up there, right? So
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, and actually, you bring up something. It's actually good to pay more attention to the middle manager because they can make or break an employee's experience. And honestly, with all the uncertainty and change that we are seeing in the workforce right now, they have a lot on their shoulders that they are carrying.
for
And
sure.
so it's really important that organizations start to invest in their middle managers in terms of coaching and the support that they need to get to the next level, and also wellness because they're dealing with a lot of stress themselves.
100%. They're getting it from both sides, right? They got the leadership putting the pressure
Yes,
from that, and then they got it. They got the
right, and
person.
whatever they're dealing with at home.
Yeah, 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 and whole in life, right?
Yes.
And we forget about that often. And
Mhm.
a lot of them, they were great technically, right? And they were thrown into the position of people
Yeah, and they may not always like people. Something, I mean,
Yeah,
they can be great
yeah.
technically, but they might not be people.
Right, right. So we have to give them that training as well. Like, how
Yeah,
do I actually deal with people? How do I
right.
ensure that I'm supporting them and supporting myself? Because
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a training that is really underutilized for that middle manager.
Yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we're gonna wrap up a little bit, but before we do you have any like parting words that you would leave with the audience as we talk about inclusive leadership in tech?
I would say definitely focus on retention. I feel like that's often the missing piece because just from what I'm seeing or what's publicly shared, it's always on hire, hire, hire. You can hire all day, but we're in this phase of all these mass layoffs, and we're still not seeing the numbers rising. So understanding why people are leaving and what you need to do to retain people in your organizations. LinkedIn published a report a couple of years ago that said 94% of employees would stay at their companies if they simply invested in them. So providing coaching, opportunities for mentorship and sponsorship, or just workshops. So
No,
invest in your employees.
yeah, absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree. And this applies across industries, not just in tech. I know
Right.
we've been talking about
Mhm.
tech, but this is across industries, and you are absolutely right, Angela. Like, it's so interesting how organizations, and I asked this yesterday in my talk as well, is like, what do you put most of your attention towards? It? Is it recruiting, or is it the fact of retaining your talent? And most
Mhm.
of them say, recruiting. So
Yeah.
we definitely have to look and say, how can we retain our talent? How can we develop them? How can we ensure that there's continuity here in
Mhm.
our organizations and get that institutional knowledge and
Yes.
allow
Yes.
people to have a clear path to grow?
Yes. Yes. And
So
actually, I just want to add one additional thing, just
absolutely.
going back to the culture. And so again, I'm a victim of workplace trauma. I've experienced a very traumatic incident that led to a diagnosis of breast cancer, work-related depression, anxiety, and PTSD based on the
Mm.
experience with my senior leadership team. So sometimes you have to address the toxicity that's at the leadership level. And I feel like that is something that is not talked about.
Yeah, at 100%. And I'm so sorry you had to go through that. And just take a moment. You said that's not something that's talked about. Talk about it.
Yeah. So again, I experienced a very traumatic incident in a all hands meeting, and I got no support. I eventually found the courage to speak up and go to HR and say, here's what's happened to me. I said, I do not feel psychologically safe on my team. I asked to be moved. Nothing was done. It wasn't until I resigned. It was like, okay, well, now we're going to do an investigation. Well, I no longer work for the company. Why didn't you
Mm.
do an investigation when I reached out to you?
And yeah, and that answer probably never came, right?
No,
And why that
I'm still
investigation.
waiting.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. Well, definitely appreciate your transparency and leaders. That's definitely something you want to think of and take into account. Like, are you having those conversations to give people that psychological safety and actually listening to them, not just
Mhm.
taking in and doing a
Right.
town
Yeah.
hall and they put in
Yeah.
all these questions and you say thank you for sharing and nothing is implemented from that. Definitely have to make sure you implement and see it so they can see the change taking place, see that they are valued, see that
Yes.
they are heard. All right, so that's how we're going to start with that culture. Before culture, you got to start with the mindset of the organization, and only then can you start focusing on that cultural piece, and then layering on the training, and then getting down to that foundational level of a great organization.
Yes.
So, thank you so much for your time, Angela. How can everyone connect with you?
I am most active on LinkedIn, so you can visit me on LinkedIn at Angela V. Harris. My company website is 2638managementgroup.com, and my personal website is angelavharris.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And if you are not connected with me already, I am Jevon Wooden. Search my name on LinkedIn. You'll see a light bulb next to me. Make sure you hit connect and just reach out to me. I would love to have a conversation with you to hear your insights on this topic. And again, if you're watching this on a replay, still put your comments in because we will respond afterwards. We have not forgotten about you. But until next time, remember to keep ascending. We'll see you soon.